The past few days have really been a roller coaster, and I don't know what to make of it. Hope you guys can help me. For some background, I, 35F, am a practicing OBGYN at a university hospital, married to my husband Mike, 34M. We've been together for 8 years and have a 6-year-old son. Both of us work, but Mike has always been the one to handle our finances. I trusted him with that because he seemed to have a good grip on our financial situation, and I was more focused on my family and career. Everything seemed fine until recently when his sister Ashley, 30F, moved in with us after what she described as a messy breakup with her partner James. Ashley was clearly upset, and I wanted to be supportive, so I never questioned her story. I was more concerned with making sure she felt welcomed and comfortable in our home, and I put all my efforts into making sure that she recovers from this horrible breakup. But what happened at my pregnancy announcement party just flipped a switch in my head. We had gathered close family and friends to share the news of our new baby. The house was filled with laughter, and everyone was excited. I had spent days planning this event, making sure every detail was perfect, from the decorations to the food. It was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of our lives, a memory we could look back on with joy. As I stood in the living room ready to make the announcement, Mike and Ashley exchanged a look that I didn't quite understand at the time. I brushed it off, thinking they were just excited or nervous about the news. But just as I started to share our big news, the atmosphere shifted. Mike and Ashley stepped forward, and the room fell silent as they abruptly interrupted me. Without any warning, Mike and Ashley came at me and started asking, "How could you do this?" For a second, I just laughed because I thought it was some joke, but after a while, the reality struck me. They were accusing me of cheating. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. They claimed they had evidence, something undeniable, something that proved I had betrayed Mike and our family. My heart pounded in my chest as they laid out their accusations in front of everyone. It was like a bad dream, surreal and terrifying. Nothing made sense, they were just saying random words, not explaining even a single thing. I was simply lost. The guests were stunned, their expressions shifted from joy to confusion and disbelief. I could feel their eyes on me, judging, questioning. Mike and Ashley sounded so convincing and so final that I think everybody assumed I was guilty. I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. I kept searching their faces, hoping to see some sign that this was a joke or a mistake, but there was nothing. They were serious, and the more they talked, the more isolated I felt. It wasn't just the shock of the accusations, it was the way they were delivered, so cold, so calculated. They had planned this, rehearsed it, and now they were executing it in front of my friends and family. How could they accuse me of something so terrible without a shred of evidence? What was the point of this? The more I questioned, the more they doubled down, as if my confusion and pain were proof of my guilt. The people I trusted most were turning on me in the most public, humiliating way. After Mike was done shouting, he stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. I just stood there, my heart racing, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The guests, clearly uncomfortable and unsure of what to do, began to murmur amongst themselves. It must have been so awkward for them, caught in the middle of such a personal and public spectacle. Slowly, one by one, they started to leave, offering awkward glances and half-hearted goodbyes. I couldn't blame them, they didn't know what to believe, and I didn't have the strength to explain. I wanted to ask Ashley what all of this was about, to demand some sort of explanation, but before I could even gather my thoughts, she rushed out of the house with her mom, not sparing me a single glance. I felt completely abandoned, the walls of the house that once felt like a home closing in on me. The place that had been filled with laughter and love just moments ago now felt cold and suffocating. I couldn't stay there for another second. With tears streaming down my face, I quickly packed a bag, grabbed my son, and left. I didn't know where to go, so I just drove aimlessly until I ended up at a small hotel on the edge of town. It was far enough away from everything that I could breathe again, but close enough that I could still feel the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. I checked in under a different name, hoping to keep a low profile. I didn't want to face anyone, my friends, my family, because in their eyes, I was a cheater, and I had no way to prove otherwise. My mind kept replaying the events of the evening, trying to make sense of Mike and Ashley's actions, but nothing added up. How could they do this to me? What had I done to deserve such a cruel and humiliating attack? The next day, as I sat in the hotel room trying to keep myself together for the sake of my son, there was a knock on the door. And there they were, Mike and Ashley. Somehow they had found me. It must have been through my dad. He was the only one who knew where I was. I didn't even have time to process how they had tracked me down before they started talking through their apologies. They claimed that the whole thing was just a prank. They said they never meant for it to go so far, that they thought it would be funny, or that it was some twisted way to test my loyalty to Mike. The more they talked, the more absurd and infuriating their excuses became. A prank? They had humiliated me in front of everyone we knew, turned my world upside down, and they expected me to believe it was all a joke? But as they continued to beg for my forgiveness, something clicked. Their desperation wasn't just about the prank itself, it was about what I had started to uncover after the party. I had recently been checking our savings and finances, just to make sure we had enough to adjust to our new baby in the family, and I found a big hole in our savings. It wasn't just a small discrepancy either, thousands of dollars were missing, and it didn't make any sense. I also noticed that our credit card balance had been growing, and the due fees were piling up. We always paid off our balance in full every month, so this was completely out of character for us. My biggest question was, where was this lump sum of money going? I brought it up to Mike, asking for the credit card bills to understand what was going on, but he got really defensive. Instead of explaining, he turned it around on me, questioning whether I trusted him. He made it seem like my concern was an attack on his integrity, which only made me more suspicious. I decided not to push the issue further at that moment, but the whole situation didn't sit right with me. To make matters worse, Ashley came to me later out of the blue, telling me that I should never doubt Mike, that he was 1 in a million, and that I was lucky to have him. It was strange and unsolicited, almost as if she knew about the conversation I had with Mike and wanted to reinforce his narrative. All of this irked me and made me even more uneasy, so I started keeping an eye on our bank statements and financial records more closely. As I combed through our accounts, I discovered something alarming. Mike had been transferring money to Ashley. The transactions were disguised as harmless payments, but the amounts were too large and too frequent to ignore. He had been slowly siphoning off money from our savings and funneling it to Ashley's account. The timeline of these transfers coincided with when Ashley had supposedly moved in with us after her breakup, which now seemed more like a cover story than the truth. At first, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Mike had always handled our finances, and I had trusted him implicitly, but now it was clear that he had been hiding things from me, big things. The missing money, the unpaid credit card bills, Ashley's sudden appearance in our home, it all started to make sense, but not in the way I had hoped. I realized that Mike and Ashley had concocted this whole story to distract me from their real activities. Ashley wasn't just staying with us because she was heartbroken, she was hiding from the consequences of her actions. The money Mike was sending her wasn't a loan or a gift, it was part of a larger scheme to cover up her embezzlement from the business she had run with James. As this all clicked into place, I knew I couldn't stay silent. Mike and Ashley had tried to manipulate me with their so-called prank at the pregnancy announcement party, hoping to throw me off the scent of their dirty business, but instead of deterring me, it had only made me more determined to uncover the truth. I'm left wondering what my next steps should be. Should I confront them with what I've discovered? Should I reach out to James and get his side of the story? How do I protect myself and my children while ensuring justice is served? I need your advice, Reddit. How should I handle this situation? Update 1. Hi everyone, your support over these past few days has been overwhelming. A lot has happened since my last post, and I have many questions to answer, so I'll try to explain everything clearly. First, I reached out to James. Initially, it was a difficult decision. I wasn't sure if it was my place to get involved in what I thought was Ashley's past relationship. But after discovering the suspicious financial transactions, I knew I needed to hear his side of the story. The conversation with James revealed a truth far more disturbing than I had imagined. There was never any messy breakup. Ashley had fled after James discovered massive financial irregularities in their joint business venture. We're not talking about small discrepancies. The total amount embezzled exceeded $100,000 over the course of 8 months. James explained that he and Ashley had started a successful consulting firm together 2 years ago. Things were going well until he noticed inconsistencies in their accounts during a routine audit. At first, he thought it was just accounting errors, but as he dug deeper, he found a complex web of unauthorized transfers and falsified documents. The way she did it was clever, James told me. She would create legitimate-looking invoices from fake vendors, process the payments, and then redirect the money to various personal accounts. But what really shocked me was discovering your husband's involvement. According to James, Mike had been actively helping Ashley launder the stolen money. He used his financial expertise to create a complicated paper trail, moving funds through multiple accounts to obscure their origin. The harmless payments I had discovered were just the tip of the iceberg. When I shared my findings about the transfers from our savings account, James helped me understand the bigger picture. The money wasn't just going to Ashley, it was being cycled through several accounts before eventually making its way back to a joint account Mike and Ashley had secretly opened together. The timing of everything suddenly made perfect sense. Ashley's move to our house wasn't about escaping a bad relationship, it was about avoiding legal consequences. James had confronted her about the missing funds, and she had panicked. Mike, playing the protective older brother, had orchestrated her escape and provided her with a safe haven in our home. What's even more shocking is that while all this was happening, Mike was using our family's financial stability as collateral. The growing credit card debt I had noticed? That was from Mike trying to cover their tracks, using our personal credit to temporarily fill holes in their scheme. He was essentially gambling with our family's future, our children's security, all to protect his sister's criminal activities. I've spent the last few days gathering evidence, bank statements, transfer records, everything I could find. James has been incredibly helpful, providing me with copies of the business records that initially tipped him off. He's also introduced me to his lawyer, who specializes in financial fraud cases. The lawyer helped me understand the full scope of what Mike and Ashley have done. This isn't just about betrayal of trust, they've committed serious financial crimes. The way they've moved and concealed the money could constitute money laundering, wire fraud, and possibly even tax evasion. I'm planning to gather both families together to expose everything. It won't be easy, these are people who believed I was a cheater just days ago, who watched me be humiliated at what should have been a joyous announcement. But they need to understand the full truth, to see how Mike and Ashley have manipulated and deceived everyone. The hardest part is knowing how this will affect my children. My son already senses something is wrong, and the stress can't be good for my pregnancy. But I can't let Mike and Ashley continue their scheme. Their prank at the party wasn't just a cruel joke, it was a calculated attempt to discredit me because I was getting too close to the truth. I've scheduled the family meeting for this weekend. James has agreed to be there to corroborate everything with his documentation. I'm terrified but determined. These people tried to destroy my reputation to cover up their crimes. They used my trust, our family's resources, and even my pregnancy announcement as tools in their scheme. My question now is, am I doing the right thing? Should I just confront Mike privately first? But given how he and Ashley handled things at the party, I'm worried they'll just try to manipulate the situation again. I need this to happen with witnesses present, with evidence laid out clearly for everyone to see. I'll update you all after the family meeting. Thank you for all your support and advice, it's given me the strength to face this head-on. Update 2, I need to tell you about how the family meeting went down. The truth is finally out, and the aftermath has been both devastating and liberating. The meeting was held in my parents' living room. Everyone seemed tense from the moment they arrived, probably expecting some kind of defense about the cheating accusations. James arrived slightly early, which caused immediate confusion among the family members. Nobody expected to see Ashley's ex there. I had set up my laptop and prepared copies of all the financial documents. Once everyone was seated, I took a deep breath and started. First, I showed them the bank statements revealing the systematic draining of our savings. My father-in-law, who works in banking himself, leaned forward in his chair, his expression growing darker with each slide. Then James stepped up. His presentation of the business records was methodical, showing exactly how Ashley had manipulated their company's accounts. The silence in the room grew heavier as he explained how Mike had helped create elaborate cover-ups for the stolen money. The moment that truly broke everyone was when I played the security camera footage from the bank. My mother-in-law gasped audibly as she watched Mike and Ashley entering the bank together multiple times on days they had claimed to be elsewhere. The footage perfectly matched the dates of the largest transfers. My father-in-law's hands were shaking as he examined the documents. He kept muttering, "I taught him better than this." My mother-in-law had started crying silently, her shoulders trembling as she looked through the evidence of her children's deception. The most painful moment came when my own parents realized the extent of their mistake in doubting me. My mother burst into tears, repeatedly apologizing for not standing by me at the party. My father had to leave the room for a few minutes to collect himself. What really struck everyone was Mike and Ashley's absence. Earlier that morning, when I told Mike about the family meeting, he'd made excuses about work commitments. Ashley had simply gone silent when I texted her. James shared details about how he had discovered the embezzlement, including copies of the falsified invoices. He explained how Ashley's sudden disappearance had coincided with his discovery of the fraud, not some dramatic breakup as she'd claimed. The most shocking revelation was learning about the joint account Mike and Ashley had opened. My father-in-law actually recognized the bank branch. It was the same one where he had helped Mike open his first account as a teenager. That detail seemed to hit him particularly hard. As the meeting progressed, anger began to replace the initial shock. My father-in-law started talking about legal consequences. He's well connected in the banking industry and made it clear he wouldn't help cover this up. My mother-in-law, through her tears, kept asking why they hadn't just come to them for help if they needed money. Both sets of parents insisted that I stay with my son at my parents' house for now. My father-in-law promised to handle Mike, saying he needed to face consequences for his actions. Even Mike's aunt, who had been particularly cold to me at the party, hugged me before leaving. Right now, my phone is exploding with messages from family members who weren't at the meeting. Mike has started calling incessantly, but I'm not ready to talk to him yet. Ashley has switched from sending aggressive messages to pleading ones, but I'm ignoring those too. I feel drained but relieved. For the first time since the party, I can breathe freely. The truth is out, and I'm no longer carrying this burden alone. Now I need to focus on protecting myself and my children, both legally and financially. I'll update again once I've figured out my next steps. Thank you all for your support through this nightmare. Update 3, it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has changed. I've moved in with my parents, and adjusting to this new reality has been complicated. My parents have been incredibly supportive. Mom has taken time off to help with my son, and Dad has been working from home more often. They're trying to create a stable environment, but I can see the guilt in their eyes every time they look at me. The hardest part is watching my son struggle with these changes. Yesterday morning, he asked me, "When are we going home?" and I didn't know how to answer. I've been telling him we're having a long sleepover at Grandma and Grandpa's house while our home is being fixed, but I know this explanation won't work forever. Work has become my sanctuary. My colleagues at the hospital have been understanding, even though I haven't shared all the details. My department head adjusted my schedule, and a few close colleagues have stepped up to cover some of my on-call shifts. Mike's behavior has been confusing. He switches between desperate apologies and subtle manipulation. He keeps sending messages about how much he misses our son, how he's willing to do anything to make things right. But when I mention the missing money, he becomes evasive. Last week, he showed up at the hospital during my lunch break with flowers and our son's favorite stuffed animal. "I know I messed up," he said, "but think about our children. Think about our family." He kept emphasizing how his reputation being ruined would affect our kids' future. Ashley, on the other hand, has shown her true colors. After her initial pleading messages failed, she started sending threatening texts. She claims I'm destroying her life and threatens to make up more stories about me if I don't fix things with the family. I've started seeing a therapist who specializes in family trauma. She's helping me process everything and gives me guidance on how to handle my son's questions. We've developed a plan for age-appropriate honesty, acknowledging that Mommy and Daddy are having grown-up problems, but reassuring him that both of us love him very much. The pregnancy adds another layer of complexity. My last checkup showed slightly elevated blood pressure, and my OB colleague is concerned about stress levels affecting the baby. She suggested I take a short leave from work, but staying busy helps keep my mind off everything. My father-in-law has been handling the financial aspects with James's lawyer. The amount they've uncovered keeps growing. We're not just talking about the original embezzlement anymore, there are layers of financial manipulation that even I didn't know about. My son had his first therapy session yesterday. The child psychologist says he's showing signs of anxiety but is resilient. She suggested maintaining routine and regular video calls with Mike, supervised by my parents. It's painful to watch these calls, my son's excited face, Mike's performed normalcy, my parents' watchful concern. The most unexpected support has come from my mother-in-law. Despite her initial shock, she's been calling regularly to check on my son and the pregnancy. Last weekend, she brought over photo albums and sat with my son, telling him stories about when his dad was little. I'm trying to focus on practical aspects now. My lawyer is preparing divorce papers, and we're documenting everything for potential legal proceedings. The hardest moments are at night, after my son is asleep. That's when the magnitude of everything hits me. I look at my growing belly and wonder about the future. For now, I'm taking it day by day. My priority is maintaining stability for my son and ensuring a healthy pregnancy. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. It means more than you know. Update 4, this might be my last update, and I want to keep things clear and focused. The past week has brought some final decisions and clarity to my situation. A few days ago, I invited Mike to meet me at my parents' house to see our son. It was the first time we'd been in the same room since everything came out, and I knew it was the right moment to tell him about my decision to file for divorce. When I told him, his reaction was exactly what I expected: more apologies, more promises to change, more attempts to convince me we could work things out. But this time, watching him go through his practiced routine of remorse, I felt nothing but certainty in my decision. "You're not just breaking up our family," he argued, "you're taking away our children's future." The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me. He was the one who had gambled with our children's security by embezzling our savings. I stayed calm and explained that the divorce papers were already being prepared. I made it clear that I wasn't trying to keep him from our son, that he could maintain a relationship with him as long as he respected boundaries and followed our lawyer's agreements. His face changed when I mentioned lawyers. "You're really going to do this?" he asked, as if everything that had happened wasn't enough reason. "After 8 years of marriage, you're just going to throw it all away?" I told him that he was the one who threw it away, first by stealing our family's money, then by trying to discredit me in front of everyone we knew. The pregnancy announcement party was just the final act in his long performance of deception. Ashley found out about the divorce decision through Mike and launched into a new wave of attacks. This time, she went beyond text messages, creating fake social media accounts to spread more lies about me. She even tried to contact my hospital administration with false complaints. But I was prepared this time. My lawyer had already documented all her previous threats and messages. We sent her a cease and desist letter, making it clear that any further harassment would result in legal action. The threat of legal consequences finally seemed to get through to her. The harassment stopped almost immediately. The reality of divorce proceedings has brought some unexpected peace. There's something final about putting everything on paper: the division of assets, custody arrangements, financial responsibilities. My lawyer has been thorough, ensuring that Mike's financial fraud is well documented and considered in the settlement. My father-in-law has been surprisingly supportive of the divorce. He pulled me aside last weekend and said, "You're doing the right thing. What Mike and Ashley did, that's not the values we raised them with." He's even offered to testify about the financial aspects if needed, putting truth above family loyalty. The hospital administration has been understanding about everything. When I explained the situation to my department head, she immediately offered to arrange for additional security measures, just in case Ashley tried to cause problems at work. My colleagues have formed a protective circle around me, ensuring I'm never alone during clinic hours. My son is slowly adjusting to our new reality. The child psychologist says he's processing things as well as can be expected. We've established a routine for his video calls with Mike, and I'm learning to separate my feelings about Mike from my son's need to maintain a relationship with his father. The pregnancy is progressing well now that my stress levels are more managed. My blood pressure has stabilized, and the latest ultrasound showed a healthy, active baby. There's something poetic about new life continuing to grow even as this chapter of my life comes to an end. Looking back, I can see how Mike's financial betrayal was just part of a larger pattern of manipulation and control. He managed our money not because he was good at it, but because it gave him power. The pregnancy announcement party wasn't just about discrediting me, it was his desperate attempt to maintain that control when he felt it slipping away. I've started looking for our own place, somewhere my son and I can start fresh when the baby arrives. My parents have offered to help with the down payment, insisting that giving us a stable home is more important than their retirement savings. I'm reluctant to accept, but they're helping me see that accepting support isn't the same as losing independence. The hardest part now is facing the future's uncertainties. Being a single mother to 2 children wasn't part of my life plan, but neither was being married to someone capable of such betrayal. I'm choosing to focus on what I can control, providing a stable, honest environment for my children and rebuilding my life on a foundation of truth. To everyone who has supported me through this journey, thank you. Your advice and encouragement helped me find the strength to make these difficult decisions. Sometimes the hardest choices are also the right ones. This might be my last update, but it feels more like a beginning than an ending. I'm ready to start this new chapter, focusing on my children and the life we'll build together.